are parties. There are crazy parties all the time. There are resources that you can look for online to help you get a sense of what parties are going on when and who is invited to them. There will almost always be parties that are open invitation that anybody can get into, or anybody who has some kind of a GDC pass can get into. There will also always be parties that are invitation only. And the thing I'll say about invitation only parties is that it's well, depending on the party, I guess. A lot of them, it's not that hard to get an invitation, and it's not that hard to sort of push your way in to a lot of them. They're busy, and they're they can't be checking vigilantly everybody's invitation. Depends on the party. Sometimes that's like an okay thing to do. And sometimes that is going to be sort of like really inappropriate and rude. And so you got to make a judgment call based on your own sense of propriety and how you want to handle yourself and where you want to be. But don't, in the same way that I would advise anyone who is applying for a job not to get scared off by the required the requirements that are listed in the job description, or the what's the thing that's below requirements? It's preferences, desired traits, desired credentials, whatever. Like, don't ever let those requirements prevent you from applying to a job. Don't ever, ever, ever. Because the worst thing that happens is they say, no, that's not what we're looking for. And 9 times out of 10, they will consider you despite the fact that you don't on paper meet the requirements that they've posted. In the same way, don't look at a invitation only party as something that you could not possibly go to. If you want to go to it, you can figure out a way to go to it most of the time. That said, I generally hate all of the parties at GDC because I am an introvert, and I also have bad hearing, and so parties for me are sort of like confusing, hot blurs where people shout at me and I don't know what they're saying. GDC parties are almost exactly like the part of Reigns where it just garbles all of the text, and you know that you're nodding and shaking your head and you're making decisions that are potentially important, but you have no idea what they actually are. So I don't do a ton of the party scene. I will definitely go to a few of them this year, and miraculously I have tickets to the Rumpus party, to that party, which I'm sure go to and leave early from. So be aware that the party scene is a big part of GDC culture, and it's an opportunity for you, and it can be a valuable opportunity, but it's also not something that you should feel obligated to be a part of, and certainly not to be beholden to. I would recommend that you look for parties at least a few of the nights that you're there, and at least make an appearance at them, because they're interesting, if nothing else. And you will occasionally meet interesting people there. They're great places to meet interesting people if you can understand any of the words that come out of their mouths. But another thing that's really good to do is just go to a hotel. there are hotels all sort of around downtown, around the convention center. Go to a hotel and check out the hotel bar, because at probably every single one of the hotel bars around the Moscone Convention Center, there will either be an official GDC party that's being thrown by some group or other that you can become a part of by going to the hotel bar, whether it's open invitation or not. Or there will be a bunch of game developers who are probably sick and tired of parties, who are drinking at the hotel bar. And that is a much more pleasant place to have a conversation with somebody, in my experience. And you can usually find folks that you can sort of meet and chat up and hang out with, even without an invitation to a specific party or a plan per se. You can sort of just go someplace and do that. This is not my advice, but this is a good friend's advice. He is much smarter than me. The best thing, he says, one of the best things that he ever did, one of the smartest decisions that he made in his career, was at his first GDC. He found somebody semi-famous. He found somebody whose name he recognized, who was a part of a community of people that he wanted to have access to. Somebody who was an indie developer, and indie developers have a notoriously, for good reason, close-knit community that isn't necessarily easy to become a part of, but is friendly, and basically approached this person and made friends with them, and then made a deal with them where if they allowed him to follow them around for the rest of GDC and introduce him to all of their friends, then he would buy all of their drinks for the rest of GDC, which is potentially expensive, but also a really good deal if you want to sort of meet a lot of people who it might be harder to meet. Because they're specific people. Like, it's really easy to meet interesting people at GDC, but if you're trying to meet specific people, that can be a little bit harder. So that's a strategy for doing that. Eve is asking if I can be her semi-famous person, and the answer is actually the answer is maybe. I do know a few people. I am not the person that you want to be your connector. I am a bad connector person. But I do, I have been, hanging out with folks for long enough that I've met a few people. And so I would be more than happy to let you, to have you come along when and if I go out places where there are people, and I'd be more than happy to introduce you to anybody that I see. Anyway. Yeah, so Eve, what I can do is help introduce you to other people who are better connectors than me. And that I think will help. Last thing, there is, I'm in a weird position for this. Well, okay, no. I mean, just in general, my very favorite thing about GDC, and GDC week is that I get to get together with all of the game dev friends that I have and people that I know that don't live in LA, but I know that I'll see once a year at GDC at least. So getting to check in and have dinner or have drinks with Bill and with Sean Plott, and I'll try to see Teddy, and actually a lot of people who do live in LA who I hardly ever get to see because we're so busy, but I will at least get to see during the week of GDC. Try to arrange to meet with people during meals whenever possible. And if you don't have friends who are going to be at GDC, who you can meet up with, try to meet people that you can meet up with at breakfast or go out to dinner with. I find that to be like way more fun and interesting and productive than like trying to get to know people at one of the GDC parties. So my experience in this is a little skewed because the last couple of years it's been feasible for me to like tweet, hey, who wants to get breakfast, and get a handful of responses, which isn't necessarily going to be everybody's experience. But honestly, I think if you put that out there, who wants to get some breakfast, along with the GDC hashtag, I wouldn't be surprised if like somebody took you up on that, and that's definitely worth doing in my book, because then you have a chance to have sort of like more of an actual conversation and connection with somebody. Eve, you do not need to try hard to be a cutie, but you also don't need to be a cutie to get meals with indie devs. You are don't overestimate the sort of the position that the average GDC attendee has in the industry. There are a lot of indie devs who are just starting out. There are a lot of people who work for small studios. There are a lot of people who are looking for jobs, who are just passionate about games and want to work in that industry. And yeah, there are a lot of like big high profile players, but there's, for every one of them, there are a lot of people who are way down the food chain from that, who have stuff going on, who are working on interesting projects, and have interesting perspectives on games and game tech and the games industry and different companies and stuff that's happening now and stuff that's going to happen in the future, who are worth getting to know, and who are potentially valuable contacts. The biggest thing is that, like, really for anybody, try to shake off your imposter syndrome, because you're not that different from a lot of the other people who are there, and you have the same connection to this group, to this community, to all of these other people that they all have with each other, which is that they're passionate about games and they want to talk about games, use that. Like, don't be afraid to be a part of that. Okay. Where are we? It's getting a little late. Do you think the behavior of the industry and the buyers would change if we said X iteration instead of X clone? I am not sure that I'm... So I mean, I think that we use clone derisively in a lot of cases where it's an appropriately derisive word for games that are that try to profit off of the popularity or the original ideas in other games without contributing anything to them. I guess if you're talking about like Shadow of Mordor is an Assassin's Creed clone. Um, yeah, I guess. I mean, I am of the opinion that statement is such hyperbole that it can't be taken at face value. Um, but if you are sort of in a place and in a community, in a forum where that kind of a statement is said in full seriousness and taken seriously, then I think that is absolutely an inappropriate sort of use of that word. Shadow of Mordor certainly borrows a lot of ideas from Assassin's Creed. I think the word iteration is a good word. Um, like all the Minecraft clones. Okay, all right, sorry. I'm getting context for this question, and the specific context is about Astroneer as a Minecraft clone, and whether or not that's an appropriate uh, term to use, and um, why it isn't. How about we revisit this after I play Astroneer and have a little bit more that I can bring to the conversation in the specific context. But in general, I mean, so what I think is an example of what we're talking about without knowing what we're talking about. Shadow of Mordor is very similar in a lot of ways to Assassin's Creed. It is also very different in a lot of ways. And to call it a clone, I think, is disingenuous and short-sighted and sort of missing the point. So calling it an iteration would be appropriate. Saying that it borrows elements, I think, is appropriate. Calling it a derivative work is also appropriate, and I don't think that there should be a negative stigma attached to that, because what isn't a derivative work. But anyway, I'll play Astroneer, and then we'll talk more about that. Oh, I died, and then I talked up, and then anyway, let's do show and tell. Okay, I have a couple good ones for the next couple of weeks, but this is Joyride, which is a comic series. I'm curious if anybody is familiar with Joyride. I'm not big in comics. And so a lot of I don't read that many comics, honestly, and I come to them from outside. Typically, like, I don't hang out in comic shops, and I don't follow the comics industry. So when I read comics, it's because, like, Joss Whedon is doing a run of X-Men comics, or Joe Hill has, like, a series of gothic horror adventure comics that are fantastic called Lock and Key, and definitely check those out. Or a friend of mine specifically recommends for me the Hawkeye run of comics by somebody famous that I don't know because I don't really follow comics that well. Anyway, Joyride is super cool. I got this for Christmas. It is written by a friend of mine, Colin Kelly. And I got him to sign it for me, which I'm super excited about. Joyride is sort of it's about a group of teenagers who are sort of sick of living in a I don't know whether best to describe it as post-apocalyptic or in a dystopian society on Earth. And so they steal a spaceship and go exploring the galaxy. And it is filled with the kind of sort of just joyful. I'm trying to think of another word than joyful, but the energetic adventure that sort of suggests. Really good characters, really good writing. Like I said, I don't read a ton of comics, but I'm really enjoying the Joyride, and I also really only read trade paperbacks. So I think they're finishing up sort of a 12 comic run of the series, and this is the first. This is the first volume. So I haven't finished the series. I'm not caught up on the series, and the series hasn't quite ended. So I'm waiting for more of the paperbacks to come out. But so far, I really really like it. Colin's awesome. He also writes for. Again, I don't know specifically. I know he writes a bunch of the Robin comics. Whether that's I don't know if it's actually a series called Robin or I don't actually know. He writes some superhero comics, and he writes a bunch of not superhero comics, and he also he's in a really super fucking cool Twitch show that is cross programming to Mostly Walking, but it's on the Geek and Sundry subscription channel that's called Alpha. That's actually maybe not on Twitch at all. I forget how that actually works, but it's live streaming on Monday nights around the same time as Mostly Walking. But if we ever have a week off, or if you get to check it out later, if anybody's an Alpha subscriber, then I think you have access to it. And if you're a Geek and Sundry subscriber, you probably have access to it too. Anyway, it's a they're doing a a tabletop role playing campaign. And he is playing one of the characters in it, whose name is I forget. I think it's it seemed like a good idea at the time, or something like that. And he's like a vat grown human sort of hybrid creature that is just who's been trapped in a box his whole life, and now wants to experience every new sensation that there is in the universe. Oh, it's a it's a spacefaring. I don't think it's actually Star Trek. I'm pretty sure that it is explicitly not Star Trek, but it is a spacefaring adventure tabletop RPG akin to Star Trek. And part of the hook for it that I think is super cool is it's a bi-weekly show. So Colin is on it every other week. And in the intervening weeks, there is another group that is also playing a tabletop RPG in the same universe, but they're the crew of a different ship. And occasionally they have crossover shows where they like meet and get together, and hijinks ensue. I think they mostly battle each other. Anyway, it's neato. There we go. That's Joyride. Joyride is super cool. Check it out. Yeah, that's what I got. Next week I'll talk about indie RPGs. What should we hold you accountable for by next week, GDC wise? I mean, my original plan had me hitting a strong draft of my slides of my presentation by next week. I'm behind on that. I have an extremely weak draft right now. So I think my new plan, my new hope for next week is to have something that is demonstrably better than a rough draft. Because right now I feel like I'm sort of one draft behind a rough draft. I'm halfway between an outline and a rough draft. And so next week I want to be past a rough draft. I want to have one better than that, and maybe not the sort of strong candidate final draft that I was hoping for, but something that's better than a first stab. I tweeted a link to my slides to Eve earlier this evening. If anybody's interested in looking at them, it's not even a rough draft yet, so I don't particularly encourage that. But by next week, I'm hoping that there is a presentation that is at least interesting enough, that's at least done enough that it is interesting to well, not to a general audience, but to an audience of you guys, that I will actually ask people to look at and give me feedback on just the slides part of it. Yeah, the dragon question isn't in there yet. That's not a mistake or an oversight or an omission. It is a symptom of the roughness of the draft. Okay. Thanks, guys. This was great. This was fun. It's late, but not too late. So that's nice. I'm gonna go home and probably try to sleep tonight. I hope everybody has a lovely weekend. I will see you guys on Monday for Mostly Walking. Yeah, I'm going to keep doing weird meme stuff on Twitter as I have the energy. Okay. Have a great night. See ya.